this is, what's the, we're still in May,
Today's the 28th.
so it's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's June 10th.
Is it nice? Is it a nice deal?
It's a little confusing. For 20 years, this has been Francisco's farm. So it's been an art for years, and then moved downtown Midway. And then apparently the
Yes, is it music?
Bourbon and bluegrass.
bourbon,
No, it's not bluegrass. I shouldn't say that like I really am knowledgeable, but that's the
I
same
mean-
weekend as the Festival of the Bluegrass. It's
Yeah.
called Spirit of Bluegrass now
Okay,
at the Horse Park. So
Yeah,
I think it's jazz or I think it's something like that.
yeah.
anyway,
bourbon and some kind of music.
something like that. Now, I'm not quite sure if the artists are no longer invited, but
Yeah.
the sign as you are looking at, as you're approaching, coming into Midway, the big banner on the hill says bourbon and something,
Barbecue?
June 10th.
Is it barbecue?
What?
Barbecue?
That's Danville.
No.
They used to do a big barbecue festival over in Danville that it was so good downtown, and then they moved it out to a new place, and that was sad. It was fun to have it downtown, but then all of a sudden you had to like drive all the way out to this farm out on the outskirts of.
Is it the fairgrounds?
No, it's not. No, it's at the Wilderness Trace Bourbon Distillery
Okay.
So you gotta throw the B word in now for
Yeah.
every event.
with it for every event. Yeah. But it was just like I liked it downtown. It like just made downtown Danville like come alive, and it was so much fun to just walk around to all the little shops. Now all of a sudden you had to like drive and park in a big field, and like, and you didn't have like, you couldn't just go to the shops. You couldn't just go and get, you know, a cupcake at the little cupcake store downtown. I was just like, I have to try this. I thought about going over to Midway for that.
Well, they had last night was music, right?
Yeah, there's music downtown. We had like one half of the Main Street closed off. We were at a track meet in Louisville. Jamie was running, so we on the way home just stopped there because we were going to eat in Midway anyway, so we stopped there and ate.
Well, we drove through it,
So it didn't take long.
going from Equus Run to Welcome Hall. So we saw the people gathering, but we didn't slow down. We went on to.
Because everybody was over here at the graduation.
Graduation was in the morning. We had it like 11 a.m. or something like that.
I just know all over Facebook people were complaining about the traffic.
Yeah, well, they have, I'm sure, a lot of events, and they usually do the thing afterwards where they spend the night,
Mm-hmm.
all the seniors stay
Yeah.
at Falling Springs for the night.
Yeah.
So they have that going on. So
Yeah.
they've been
I
coming
mean,
to
there
So
were
what graduation was here?
High school.
high school.
Woodford County. High school, Woodford County High School graduated yesterday.
Where?
At Falling Springs,
Outside.
outside
On the football field.
on the football field.
Okay.
Oh, tell Todd that I'll miss not having her drive that car to run all over Francisco Park.
All right,
The
let's go.
Budweiser Clydesdales are gonna be at the Chevy Chase Inn Wednesday afternoon at 5
Oh,
o'clock.
you're kidding, I love those.
I don't know if it's just gonna be one or two, or they're gonna have the whole, it was in today's paper.
What are they gonna do with them?
Parade
Well,
down the street.
This is a
Down
92nd,
Euclid Avenue?
Uh-huh.
this is a 92nd year for Chevy Chase Inn, and they sell a lot of Budweiser. So
Uh-huh.
they're gonna bring, I don't know if they're bringing one horse or the whole bunch.
Well, let me tell you a story when we're not on camera.
I was gonna say, let's go ahead and get started. The sooner we start, the sooner we can hear your story. Are there any prayer requests that we need to discuss today?
I might have been a little premature in pronouncing Kitty recovered. We some setbacks, but just it's part of the process.
Continued prayers for Kitty, for sure.
If you all can pray for Victoria and Hillary, they're going on their first vacation in 3 years, and they're going to Italy.
Wow.
And Mom and Dad are happy, but we're scared to death. But
Are they going on
They're-
their own, or what are
they're
they
going
doing?
by themselves. Well, I mean, you know, Victoria's in her 20s, and I really don't have any control over that situation. But you know, Hillary hadn't been anywhere out of the United States of America ever, so we're just, if y'all could just pray for safe travels and
Absolutely,
safe, fun time.
absolutely.
They've got good heads on their shoulders. They'll be okay.
Yeah.
Italy, they're going everywhere. They're going on a land tour, so they're going to Pompeii, they're going to Rome, they're gonna go to the Vatican, Vatican, all that Vatican
Yep,
City.
Vatican City.
They're gonna go to Florence, Venice, see the Colosseum.
Nice.
They're going to Positano, Venice. I mean, it's like a tour. It's gonna be they're gonna come back tired.
Are they taking the trains?
No, they are on a bus.
Oh, that'd be great, they'll have a wonderful time. So they're actually on a guided tour type thing?
Yeah,
They're gonna love it, they're gonna have a great time.
Yeah.
good.
And that's safe, it's a good way to go.
Did you ever read or watch Under the Tuscan Sun?
Yes.
Which is how she ended up living in Italy. She, found her a house for sale, decided to get off the tour bus and buy it and live in Italy. So, just tell them not to be looking for any homes for sale over there. Let's go ahead and say a quick prayer and then get started. God, thank you so much for this time together. We pray for Kitty, for Victoria and Hillary, for Lisa as they head off to Italy. We know that they're going to have a good time and they will be safe, but it's hard when you love somebody to let them go. Be with us in this conversation. Be with all those who are away for the holiday weekend. May their travels be safe and may they come back to us next week. We pray all of this in your son's name. Amen. All right. So Mary said she started reading all of this morning and just started glazing over.
We did too.
And I get that. It is a lot. But I hope that you are getting, especially out of the conversations from this. I hope that this is helping a little bit. And please tell me if it's not and we'll stop. We don't have to keep going. But we're halfway through. I know it's a lot, but I hope it helps understand what Revelation is all about. That it isn't this big, scary, end of the world. I mean, it is big, scary, end of the world stuff, but there's a purpose to it. Rather than just doom and destruction, there is hope there, and we're getting there. We're getting to your hope.
Ann and I discussed chapter 14 all the way over. And Ann attributes to chapter 14 her inability to sleep last night.
Well, I can see that.
So I tried to assure her that this was God striking back.
Mm-hmm.
So this was violence for good. And she said, I'm conflict avoidance. Well, even when it's my guy that's being the conflictor. So
Yep.
did you want me to share that or not? Was that?
Well, you already have, so.
Beg forgiveness. You share, then I share.
Coming out. Before it was warnings of it and there were turmoils and things like that, but they weren't attributed to any one thing. Like there was a horn that blew and then this happened, and that thing that happened was not great, but it was precipitated by the opening of a seal or the blowing of a horn. That's not to me, as terrifying as these critters that are now coming out into the world. So yeah, God strikes back. We start to see God's judgment come upon who?
The unbeliever.
The unbelievers.
Well, one thing that has concerned me that I haven't fully understood back in the beginning when the angels came to each individual Episcopal Church,
Yes, ma'am.
and they said the good things first, and then they said, but I have this to say against you.
Yes.
And I think that in more than one church, they were reprimanded because there were people professing to be Jews, and the angel found that not to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were reprimanded for that.
Yes, ma'am.
And I didn't understand specifically the basics of that conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Why, and apparently it was a severe punishment or thing going on.
We're saying if you don't stop doing that, a severe punishment will come to you if you don't stop doing what you're doing.
Well, and I am accustomed to reading from this little book of God's promises
Mm-hmm.
before I go to sleep at night. And I guess I made a mistake to choose to read chapter 14 before I went to bed. And I did not sleep until about 5 o'clock this
Oh,
morning.
Ann.
And Hank calls at 8:45.
And you didn't answer. And I had to call back at 9 and wake you up.
Well, I hadn't been out of bed a half an hour. So anyway, I found it troubling, and as Hank said, he was telling me that God was fighting back,
Mm-hmm.
and all conflicts are upsetting to me,
Yeah.
no matter who's involved. I don't like intense conflicts.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that was part of what was keeping me awake,
Probably.
but, that's not good bedtime.
No, let's not do that again. Let's maybe read it like at noon or something, and then you can read your promises of God before you go to sleep
Yeah.
tomorrow or tonight. Well, can anybody bring her up to speed? Do you all remember the churches? And what was the purpose of those letters that were being written? Do you all remember that? There's been a lot since.
Well, I'm trying to look at your notes on Smyrna.
Uh-huh.
There was hostility between the Smyrna church and Jewish neighbors because they were an established religion. Jews were exempt from participating in anything that threatened their monotheistic faith.
Mm-hmm.
Newer faiths like Christianity were not so lucky. Is that?
So that was from Rome. So Rome allowed, a lot of times when they would come into an area, they would allow you to continue to worship your gods as long as you followed their rules and behaved yourself. But any new faiths that cropped up, they were like, no, that can't happen. So like Christianity was a new system of belief. And so they were like, no. Like, because who was our person that we followed?
The Roman emperor.
No, who did Christianity begin to follow? Jesus Christ.
Yes,
And so the Romans found that threatening because Jesus was a real person.
yes.
And they felt threatened by that because that person could overtake the emperor,
Like the King of the Jews.
or yeah, the king of the Jews. So they were very threatened by Jesus, which is one of the reasons they worked within the Jewish powers that be to have him killed. And then when people continued to follow him, they're like, well, this really isn't good. Like we gotta shut this down. So Jews started getting the Jews of that time started getting very nervous because all of a sudden these people were drawing attention to Jerusalem, and they knew if they continued to do that, Rome was going to come in and just the whole town, the whole city, which they eventually did do.
Well, I guess I'll have to think more about that. But I was surprised at the wording that some of them were professing to be Jews, and the angel found that in practice that was not true.
So what were they doing that they were professing to be Jews, but what were they doing?
They were following the rules of the guild.
They were following the rules of the guild. And what were those rules?
Allegiance to Rome.
Allegiance to Rome.
And worshipped the temples. You had to be a member of the temple or
Yeah.
attend the temple or whatever. the right-
And not, and whose temple?
Didn't that depend on the
The guild you
group,
were
the
in.
guild?
So each guild, so like let's say I'm a banker. The bankers had their own guild, their own community with their own god. And if you were involved in that guild, you had to take part in venerating whatever god was head
Yeah.
of that guild, including eating meat sacrificed to that god. But what does Jewish law say about eating sacrificed meat to another god?
It's unclean.
It's unclean. Don't do it. But to be able to be part of that guild, to be able to make money, what did you have to do?
Follow the guild.
Follow the guild. So that is what John is saying in that letter, or God is saying in that letter, is you are putting your own
Desire.
desires before,
God's
mhm,
desires.
It's idol worship.
Yeah.
That was
that was, because this was idol worship. So you could still do your work, you just couldn't be a part of that guild. But if you weren't a part of that guild,
You didn't make any money.
you didn't make any money. And so that's where a lot of those were saying, like, you profess to be Jews, but
You don't act like.
you don't act like it. And so I turned the question back around on us as Christians in this day and age. What would God say to our church if God was writing a letter
Yeah.
to us? Would we get, like, there were two churches that God was like, you're doing good, keep up, like, well done, keep doing what you're doing. Would we get that letter? Or would we get a, Dear Pisgah, I notice that you read my book and you follow my laws and all of that stuff, but I have this against you as well. Would we get a letter like that? Or would we get a keep it up, good and faithful servant letter?
Yes.
So That's what that is.
Yes, well, that's helpful, thank you.
I'm glad.
It looks like Ann's talking about Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews and are not, but are lying. I will make them come and bow down before your feet, and they will learn that I have loved you, because you've kept my word.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they were saying, look at us, we are good Jews, we are following all the rules, and then outwardly they are. But inwardly, nyeh, not so much. And so people are like, oh, there's such good Jews over there, well done, you. And then God's like, yeah, no, actually I can see
But
and hear.
they still found things to hold against them.
Exactly. Exactly. God still said, nope, you are pretending that you're doing everything correctly, but you know you're not. And I know you're not.
And at this point, historically, Christianity was looked at as something different.
Then Judaism,
Yes,
it was starting to separate itself. It had not yet truly become a completely separate thing, because John is writing to synagogues. So he is still writing to Jews, but they are Jews who, they still follow the Jewish laws, they still follow the Torah and read the Torah, because he is relying heavily on Daniel and Ezekiel, all of these books that we call the Old Testament. They would have called just the Bible back then. But Christianity is starting to separate itself from Judaism. It hasn't quite done it all the way, because Constantine, you all know this part?
yes.
Constantine is the first emperor who says Christianity is okay. Constantine isn't here yet. We're in Domitian. I don't know when in the line of succession Constantine comes up. I'm bad with dates anyway. I never learned that. But yeah, so it's starting to pull itself away, but it isn't quite there. So they still consider themselves Jews in a lot of ways. Probably still calling themselves the people of the way. Have you all heard that name for early Christians?
We talked about it 2 weeks ago,
Yep, it was in my sermon. Yep.
or maybe 3 weeks.
Some point in the past month.
Yes.
But yeah, so they're starting to pull themselves away, but aren't quite there yet. And it really doesn't happen until a big person in power says, I now believe in Christianity. And like makes that distinction.
At this stage, this is Nero persecuting the Christians. So he's saying.
No, we're in Domitian.
I thought 666 was,
It does represent Nero, but that was he's gone already.
we've already come through that.
Yeah.
But John is still singling him out.
He's singling him out because he was very evil.
And I thought John was telling us that Rome is still under the influence of Nero.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, Nero has already committed suicide.
But I thought he was living on in monuments and in followers who still persecuted Christians.
Yeah, there is, sorry, I misunderstood you. Yeah, he is still a large
We
influence.
talked about the statute that speaks.
Yeah.
And I thought that was succeeding Roman emperors who continued to persecute Christians.
After, I mean, the persecutions haven't stopped, have they?
No. They've lessened, actually.
Okay.
Nero was out for in order to avoid persecution.
They're bowing down to Rome.
Yep.
There were what?
They're bowing to Rome.
Okay.
That's what John is railing against,
They're accommodating themselves
to the empire.
To get by
to get by
and to live.
and to live.
And
Exactly.
not witness.
Yeah, and
Not witness.
to not witness.
And then when do these beasts come in?
They haven't come in yet in reality.
No, the beasts are here.
There is, yes and no. So John is saying this is coming if you all continue in the way that you are going. But he is using modern things, us ancient things, to indicate what will happen. So that's why he's using Nero. Do you all remember Nero? You all remember what Nero did to us? That will happen again if you all don't get on board with God.
Well, I was reading this to the extent, paying attention to it, that John is describing a heaven,
Mhm.
still, sea, the tables, the cherubs, the elders,
The terrifying angels.
angels, the Lamb. And this battle between Satan and Michael is a description of the world as it is, not the future. And it is basically a picture of the world. And he is saying, I got to this vantage point and I saw the world the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a battle between Satan and God.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that's gonna happen in the future, it's happening right now, we're living through it.
We're living
And
through
there are
it.
144,000 that are marked and safe, and then the rest of us have work to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't see it as a future.
It's a both and.
Yeah.
It's a both
just
and.
It's just like, the Old Testament prophets, they're talking about today, but they're also, it's the forward of what's to come.
Yeah.
So it's yes today, but it's also a prediction or a prophetic, look at the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
The
that's what
peaceful
Revelation
kingdom is the future. And chapter 21 may be seen as the future, or it can be seen as it's here, we just need to open our eyes.
It's a both and, both ways.
Okay, all right, as long as you validate my way.
As long as he's not wrong.
Exactly. But yeah, it's all a both and.
Okay.
Because, yes, it was
Isaiah was then, and he was also,
now.
yes, prophesying what was to come.
Mm-hmm. Because history is what?
Circular.
Cyclical.
I cringe at that. I hear you. I believe that history is actually moving somewhere.
Way. We cannot look and be like, you know what? That really wasn't the best idea in the world that we did about 50 years ago. Let's not do that again. Look at fashion. Good Lord. Some of the things that like the 80s did, Gen Z is now bringing back. I'm like, oh, do you see our pictures? But I remember my mom asking me that with like some of the clothing choices that I made as a 13-year-old. She's like, no. That was not the best idea from the 70s. Don't do that. I'm like, no, but it's pretty. Fashion is a, easy way to like poke fun of that, but we humans keep like going back to the same old, and off we go. So it is a both and. It is a present reality and a future possibility if we don't get our act together. And it's been 2,000 years. We still haven't gotten our act together. Very well, have we? We haven't gotten our act together.
We're making steady progress.
We're making steady progress,
I insist.
but we keep taking some pretty big steps backwards. Yes,
But
ma'am.
you make a step forward and 2 steps back.
Right. Exactly. He doesn't believe that though. This one over here.
We're making 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
So,
And the imagery of the beast,
mm-hmm.
where does that come from?
So that comes from Daniel, actually, the book of Daniel. And you can ask Hank what verses and chapters, because I put those in my notes for you.
That's true.
This all comes from Daniel, but John is combining it. So Daniel had 4 beasts. Do you remember what those beasts were?
Oh,
We did.
lion,
A lion,
bear,
yeah,
tiger, leopard.
a leopard, and then
A beast.
just a generalized beast that he did not give a modern animal to. John is taking those 4 and making it into one big giant beast. It is the beast of all beasts. And it has 7 heads. What do those 7 heads represent?
Churches?
Rome.
Rome.
Why does it represent Rome?
Hills, the 7 hills of Rome,
You know, Rome had 7 hills.
and also 7 emperors, I believe.
I think they had gotten to 7 emperors by that point in time. But everyone knew back then and still today that Rome had 7 hills.
Yeah.
The beast has 7 heads. It's Rome.
Have a head for tail,
They got a head for each hill and a head for each emperor.
and each hill had its own emperor.
No. They it's kind of like when we talk about America. What do we represent ourselves as in the world?
United.
United. So we would be seen as a one big thing, one giant thing. What else are we known as?
Democracy.
Think more animal-like.
Oh, eagle.
A bald eagle. So if somebody wanted to represent us as a mythological creature, we would be we would be a bald eagle combined with, if we're going to bring politics into it, staying in the Revelation kind of territory, we would be part bald eagle, part, what do you think?
An elephant?
Donkey and elephant. That would be the American beast if John were representing us. All of that leopard, the bear, tiger, lion, all of them represented other empires, the empires of the Old Testament, Babylon, Syria, or Assyria. I'm trying to think of the other ones. They were known as kind of like Russia is known as what today? The bear. So they would be the bear part of a nationalized beast, right? And people would understand that. Like we understand America as a bald eagle, and Russia as a bear, China as a dragon. We understand that. We don't understand this because we are 2,000 plus years away from it. They would have understood those images like we understand dragons and bears and bald eagles, oh my. So you see what I'm driving at is it sounds absolutely terrifying to us because we're like, these beasts. But put it in modern day terminology. Today, a beast, who are we scared of right now in this world? China, nuclear stuff. So China, Korea, Russia. Our beast is made of those three. So a bear, a dragon, and I don't know what Korea would be. A fan or something. I don't know.
Dragon.
Another dragon, another type of dragon. Our beast would be made up of those creatures. Because that's who we are scared of. Right? Same. But they just understood it. Does that help any?
Yes, it does. It does very much, and I appreciate
You're very welcome.
taking time to try to put it together.
It's a lot to put, and it's probably good for this crew over here who pretend like they read and understand to get some review work done. Because look at them over there.
North Korea's a winged,
I appreciate the review.
A winged what?
a winged horse,
A winged horse. So
a mythological winged horse.
there you go. So one of our modern day beasts for Americans would be a winged horse combined with a dragon combined with a bear.
It also says that Siberian tigers are the unofficial symbol.
Mixed with a Siberian tiger, because, let's throw them all
What are you
in there.
reading?
Yeah,
What are you reading?
Google.
Google about Korea, North Korea. So does that help? Does that help make a little bit more sense
Yes,
about these beasts?
yes.
So that's what John is doing. He's using those visual cues that they would have known.
Yes, that's important.
Yes. So we just need to translate it into beasts that we can understand.
Is that a practical way today for us to try to promote Christianity?
I think if we can get people to be not scared of Revelation and to be able to, which is what I am trying desperately to do. I hope I'm making some progress. I think it's a perfect way. Because think about all the movies that are popular right now. What are they?
Oh, any sci-fi movie you see, I've said that before, is taken from Revelations.
Yep.
The Return of the Jedi, The Empire Strikes Back,
Yep.
Good and Evil.
Good and evil, all the way. The Marvel comic movies, my lord, they are spot on. And people are flocking to them. Same with this. I call this a written political cartoon. That's what John was doing. He didn't draw it, he wrote it, but it's exactly what he was doing.
Why
So,
couldn't he be more straightforward?
Why couldn't he be more straightforward?
I mean, why do you have to have all of these flourishing symbols of things?
He wanted to stay alive,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and so he wrote in code in order to preserve his life. I mean, he was.
he was already in trouble.
I mean, he
Yeah,
was
he was in
witnessing,
exile
but he
to
was witnessing in
Patmos.
Yeah.
code for self-preservation. That's the way I'm understanding.
That's the way it should be looked at.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so.
And their literary tradition, wasn't it? Didn't I read somewhere?
Say again?
Literary, I think I read somewhere that their literary tradition at that time was more along those lines. You know,
Yes.
This was something they would have known what to do with.
Yes.
Not just because they understood the beast to be, you know, wrong and whatever, but they're, what do they call it, some kind of, there was this whole thing of end of the world
Mm-hmm.
literature, and this just sort of fits with that,
Yeah.
so it would be
Apocalyptic.
apocalyptic, yeah, so it would be familiar to
Oh,
them, and they would
100%.
know how to read it.
Because
Put
again,
that in your notes.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Again, who is John? Where is John pulling these images from?
Old Testament.
Old Testament. This, if you read the Old Testament, you will find almost the exact same beasts, the exact same language. And what Old Testament books is he primarily pulling from?
Daniel,
Daniel,
Jose.
Hosea,
Ezekiel.
Ezekiel. The whole idea of eating the scroll, that was from the Old Testament. The beasts, those are from the Old Testament. The scary angels, terrifying little critters. That's from the Old Testament.
Well, the tradition of storytelling is like that through
Yep.
all cultures.
Yep.
Through time.
100%.
Native American cultures in the United States.
It's only
It's
probably
their
with
way of
the
teaching.
It was probably with the Industrial Revolution that we started seeing this more logical way of telling a story instead of this fantastical way. Because what did humans start becoming in the Industrial Revolution? And I'm pulling this out of thin air. I don't have anything to back up my claims, but it's what I believe, so it's true.
They became cogs in a machine.
They became cogs in a machine,
Became a number.
became a
And
number.
Not a
Okay.
name, that was the only,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
number, not a name.
A number.
What else happened? More what?
Literate,
More literate?
um,
Some. But we also became very logical. We had to become logical. Because all of a sudden we were dealing with mechanics and machinery. And you didn't have as much time to do what?
You didn't have time for the embellishments.
You didn't have time for the embellishments.
I think that's probably because I'm very logical.
Mhm.
I like to follow steps.
Uh-huh.
And all of this stuff kind of just like, I am just, it's over my head.
Yeah.
In a certain way that I think.
Yeah.
You know,
And we didn't have time to just tell stories. To create stories. Because you had to be at where?
9 to 5.
9 to 5. Because even
9 to 9.
9 to, I was gonna say 9 to 9.
or
But because
more.
farmers, even back before the Industrial Revolution, you still had some time. Not a lot, because you had to get your work done, but once the work was done, or, you got up with the crack of dawn in the light, but then what happened when it got dark?
Bad.
You went to bed, or you went to your house and you were able to sit in front of the fire with your family. I'm probably romanticizing it all, but you had a little bit more time because you didn't have the advent of electricity. You couldn't work outside because you didn't have light. So you
there was
told,
no TV.
yeah, so you told stories to entertain yourself, to pass the time. Invention of lights in the Industrial Revolution, all of a sudden, we could work through the night if we needed to. Then what happens to us? TV. Yeah. We quit telling our own stories or spending time learning that. Yeah, exactly.
Even worse than TV.
Even worse. And I'm guilty of it. You give me an extra 30, 45 minutes, I don't wanna start something because I won't get it done. I don't wanna start watching a TV show. People used to just sit down and read a book. I hate reading a book. I hate reading. I love listening to books on tape, I've discovered. I'm a great auditory reader. But if I only have like a half an hour, heck yeah, I'm on my phone playing a game. That's all I have time for. Really? That's all you have time for? Seriously?
It's different ways of escaping.
Yeah.
When you're tired in the evening, it's different ways of escaping and relaxing yourself to go to sleep.
Which you should, don't read this again before bed.
Or you can skip the
Good
chapter,
idea.
skip to chapter 21 and read that before bed.
We may have to do that just for Hank for next week or whatever.
I know, right?
No, we're putting it off, we're savoring it. But you can read 21 and it'll,
Make you feel
you'll
good.
sleep all night.
It does make you feel better. All right. Well, that class went quickly. I thank you for your questions. I'm trying to move us. I promise I am.
So we're gonna do 14 again.
We're gonna do 14 again. Well, not even again. We will do chapter 14 next week.
Good, maybe I won't play some.
And are we at 11 o'clock?
All right, how does this work? When do we do the?
We
change time
do
day?
it, yeah, at 11. Because we'll have worship. Are you not here?
Well, no, I am here, but I'm having an admin and finance committee meeting at 11 next week, but it won't last long.
It won't last long. Will you all be in?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is meeting next week?
Admin and finance.
I listened last week.
For the second, third, and fourth, and if we have a fifth Sunday, we'll be outside. But what happens on the first Sunday?
Communion, so we're inside.
Communion, so we're inside.
Inside.
Yes, ma'am. So if you get here at 10 o'clock and there's nobody out there, where do we go?
Inside, I'm sure.
Exactly. And you will be surprised, but maybe not. How many people will be standing out here? Where is everybody? Over there.
We'll get it. Will Sunday school go an hour earlier?
Mm-mm.
No, 11.
11.
Be it after.
Yeah.
After worship.
Because do you hear how I'm not quite here right now? Can you imagine me at 9 o'clock in the morning? If we had Sunday school before?
They'll see you at 11.
Exactly. And do you think you could get him here by 9 o'clock in the morning?
That's hard.
That's hard.
Thank you all so much.